Well, hello. Welcome to the Coffee and Craft podcast, video podcast. If you're new here, hello, I'm Kim. If you're not new here, hello, I'm still Kim. And today we're going to be talking about how to avoid burnout in the lead up to what is arguably for a lot of people the busiest time of year, or not, as the case may be, and how burnout can affect both sides of that coin. We'll get back to that. I'm jumping ahead. But the reason I thought I'd talk about this topic today, burnout and just trying to manage the mean boss within, is because I'm living it right now and I feel like I could talk a lot about it. I also know that this video is not going to get a huge amount of views in comparison to some of the topics that I talk about, because burnout, self-care, looking after yourself, it's just not a sexy topic. It's not something people want to talk about. They just tend to click away because, yeah, bubble baths, brilliant. If you're running your own business, if you are a one-person show, you're just, all of it is so important. I was going to say your mental health, but it's just physical health, mental health, just... This is a freaking... I was going to say marathon. It's not a marathon. It's a lifestyle, darling. What a lifestyle to choose. It's a lot of work. This is going to be how this video is going to go, FYI. It's going to be rambly, and I do try to take notes to keep myself on track. I have minimal notes this week because I just don't have the energy. So I have a feeling it will just be the regulars of us this week, and I'm okay with that. And I do apologise if my mic is picking up the sound of the jets outside there. They're doing the usual, they're doing their practice runs, and they're noisy. Anyway, let's crack on. So the first thing I thought I would chat about is just the signs and how to recognise them. I don't think most of us will need help working out that we are heading towards burnout. I think sometimes it's pretty obvious. But the early stages can just look like you're tired, and you can... It's so easy to just sort of bat away and go, oh yeah, I'm just tired at the moment. Things are a lot. It will get better later. But the thing is that the lead to burnout, it is when we're constantly running on fumes with our foot flat on the pedal and later never comes. We're just constantly in survival mode. And we're in survival mode for arguably too long because our bodies do need to rest. And our minds. And I don't just mean rest as in sitting back and having a nice cup of tea. I mean rest, where we can just switch off from all of the stuff that's creating the tension, the stress, and the lead to burnout. And when I'm talking about burnout, by the by, I'm not just talking about exhaustion or mental tiredness. I am talking about burnout as in with work, with whatever you do. We talk about it a lot with regards to running your own business, because the boundaries between work and life, they get very, very blurry, very murky, very mixed, sometimes non-existent. So yes, it can look like exhaustion. It can also look like losing joy in the things that you would usually use as downtime. It can look like irritability that means that you just get crabby with your family and your nearest and dearest, with yourself. It's that mean boss thing again. And I think a lot of you will be able to relate to this. It's just going into freeze mode, where you can't do anything. You can have a list so long, and you can think to yourself, yes, there's urgency here. I need to get this done, and it's just freeze. It's just you cannot get moving. And of course, there's just the feeling of being generally overwhelmed and obligated as well. Just too many obligations, which can also lead you to be resentful and irritable. If you can relate to any of those things and they are prolonged, there's no one cause for them that can pass and then things can ease up. If this just keeps on going, you might be leading yourself towards burnout, so just bear that in mind. Now, I kind of alluded to this, but a lot of us, when we think about burnout, we think about stress, and maybe there's too much work, there's too much overwhelm, there's too many things going on causing that stress, and the pressure is just constant. Sometimes though, when we think about burnout, we're often thinking about people sort of madly packing orders and trying to keep up with demand and all of that. But sometimes it can be the complete opposite. Sometimes it can be gearing up for that and getting nothing or very little and thinking, oh God, Where are my orders? What's happening? Why are people not buying? It can be one or the other. If you're watching this video, I'm guessing for you it's probably one or the other. Both of them are extremely stressful, and both of them can lead to all of those feelings that I just mentioned. So I think we immediately tend to go to the busy, mad, rushing, lots of sales example, when it can also look very much like the opposite, or not necessarily no sales, but just not as many as you would be expecting for you, whatever that figure may be. And then having that little voice in the back of your head like, ooh, this isn't good. So that's going to make this next part of the video a bit more difficult, because when we're talking about dealing with burnout, it's going to look very different dependent on which side that you're falling on at the moment. It's also going to look very different depending on what kind of person you are and what your needs are. So again, I'm going to be very broad with this topic because it's impossible for me to talk to each and every single one of you individually. So as I often say, take what serves you and just leave the rest. I do think that regardless of which side of the spectrum that we fall on, setting realistic expectations has got to be step number one in managing this hoo-ha. I think one really useful thing that we can all do is making use of the word no. There are so many obligations at this time of year, not just work ones. If you're running your own business, the boundaries between work time and private time are obviously a bit schmoozed. Obligations on either side can feel like one thing too many. So it's very important to focus on what matters to you and be brave enough to say no to other things that can be dropped or can, be declined. You don't have to say yes to every invitation. You don't have to take up every opportunity. Some people think that if you do that, then the opportunities will stop coming, the invitations will stop coming, and they won't. Again, it's you say no to something so that you can say yes to something else, and vice versa. If you say yes to something, then you're probably saying no to something else. So it's choosing what you do with your time and your energy very mindfully. And at this time of year, so much of our energy and our time has to go on things that we don't want to do and we can't drop. So it's important to definitely say no to the things that we don't want to do, and we can. Create some space where you can. You won't be able to clear the decks completely, but there will be things that you can say no to. Okay, I did put down here prioritize self-care, which just sounds so blah to me. So in brackets I put parent yourself, because if you watch my video, was it last week or the week before? Can't remember. But yes, parenting yourself is what self-care actually looks like, instead of the whole bubble baths, buying yourself chocolate, fluffy socks. You don't have to buy yourself anything for self-care. Self-care can be free. It should be free, because often the things that we need are things that we can do for ourselves, i.e. parenting ourselves. Sometimes it can look like getting yourself in the shower if you haven't in a few days and your hair's starting to feel greasy and it does that thing where it hurts. It can look like turning your screens off, putting them away, and actually sitting down and making yourself a proper meal. I know these things sound really, really basic, but this is why it's called parenting yourself, because often our true self-care, looking after ourselves, in some cases even hygiene. I know that sounds gross, but if we're being brutally honest here, things like washing my hair, brushing my hair, that's usually one of the first things to go when I'm stressed. So I have to make sure that I prioritize looking after my damn self in a way that I would never dream of ignoring with my kid, for example. So it is very much being your own parent and just making sure that your basic needs are met. Now, some of you may not have a problem with this. That's great. I'm talking to those of us that kind of really do go into freeze mode when things get a little bit too much up here. If our time is so stretched, then it can really help to schedule in a little bit of time every day to just not do anything. It can be just lying on your bed, staring at the ceiling if you really need to, but just sometimes scheduling it and if you have a planner and you plan your day, because I know I rely on my planner, in the lead up to finishing the autumn update, some of you may have been following that, that was horrendous. and I literally had in my planner every single day, I had to get outside for 10 minutes. Didn't matter what I did. I used 10-minute gardening as an excuse, because in my head I have to be productive. So the only way I could get myself out was to tell myself that I would do 10 minutes of gardening, even if that was just clearing pots from one corner of the garden to the potting shed, or, whatever. But getting myself outside, no screens, fresh air, whatever the weather, to act as a bit of a reset. That was part of it, but I had to schedule it in my sodding planner in order to make myself do it. Likewise, giving myself a little bit of time where I worked on a craft that was mine. So it couldn't be work. Even if it was embroidery, it had to be my own personal project. And I would try and do that in the evening, which was pretty good because it kind of stopped me from dragging the work across into the evening time. And I only got this done because I had it as a thing to check off my to-do list, which sounds pathetic, but that is the way it gets sometimes. So don't judge me. Sometimes I need reminding to look after myself. I hate this one. I've put limit doom scrolling, which just feels like a holier than thou mentality, and a little bit dismissive and oh so easy, because sometimes people who find themselves doom scrolling, one, again, the boundaries are blurred if you are running your business online, because a lot of us will do a lot of the work on our phones, so it's very easy to pick up our phones without really being mindful about what we're doing. We might even start doing something that is work related and slide into the doom scrolling. So there's no judgment here, trust me, I'm a bugger for this. But again, scheduling time where you turn off your screens and you just don't touch it. But also trying to avoid late night working where you can. I say this with a caveat because some people have to, and some people find that they work better later at night as opposed to early in the morning. So if that's you, I'm not saying you shouldn't do that. You crack on, ignore me. I'm talking about people who also work well early in the morning, and who will also get up early in the morning, and they will have worked all through the day or something like that, and they're kind of like on their knees in terms of energy and stuff. It's trying to make sure that you are not pushing yourself more than you can. So I work better in the morning, so I would rather get up early in the morning and get most of my work done then, or a good chunk of it, then push it to the evenings. But like I say, you do you, and you do what works for you. But sleep, regardless of who you are, what you are, or how much sleep you need, that's important. I can't tell you how important sleep is. And I say this as someone who finds sleep so difficult. Like getting a decent night's sleep where I just go to sleep and I don't wake up until I wake up or until the alarm goes off. I can't remember the last night that happened. So I feel a bit hypocritical saying this, but a good night's sleep for me is one where if I do wake up in the night, I do actually manage to get back to sleep straight away, instead of staying up awake for hours. Perimenopausal symptoms, guys. It's fun. And by fun, I mean it can get in the bin. I'm going to make it through one video without swearing, although I do think that I said a couple of words that would be considered swearing in the States, or even by YouTube's standards, so perhaps I've already failed there. But I'm British, so trust me, I've kept it clean. So yes, don't compromise on your sleep or eating, and that comes back to parenting yourself, I think. And then lastly, I've put down ask for help or trim down work as much as possible. Again, all of this feels like it's oversimplistic, but I do feel like you just need to do what you can with what you have, and it's not going to look perfect, especially when you're in the thick of it, but anything that you can do can just help take the sting out of the overwhelm, and perhaps just kick that burnout issue down the road enough that you can deal with it properly once the worst of the stressor has gone. This is the thing I don't like about self-care. I feel like it's all very well and good for a lot of people to talk about it, but they expect it to look a certain way, and that's the problem, because it excludes so many people, because not everyone is able to do what you do. Some of us have to schedule in basic self-care. That's how bad it gets. Moving on. Okay, just things like reaching out to whoever you have and asking them for help, delegating things. And then lastly, I also put prioritise high demand products. Now that's something that I myself have had to do because I've been making collections. That's usually what I do, and because my time is reduced, I've had to often take things off the list of things that I would like to make for collections and shop drops and the like, and I've had to just focus on the things that sell well. Like at this time of year, I guess they would be my like little things like this. That's an example of the things that I've been focusing on. An example of dropping things. So I had a plan to make a bunch of these. This isn't mine. This is mine. So this is the one that I made myself last year, and this one's mine. And this is the one that I made this year for the shop. And the plan was to make a bunch of them, and I ran out of time. I ran out of time, so this is a good example of something that I had to say no to. I made the one and the one only, which is a bit of a shame actually. I'm not going to lie, I was a bit gutted about that because I really liked these bags. I'm glad I got my own though. If I've made the thumbnail that I wanted to make, which will be called Selling with Joy, then this would be how I would recommend somebody does that. And it's not easy. Avoiding burnout in itself is not easy. It's almost like a job in itself. You have to prioritise your time, prioritise time to relax, which seems counterintuitive and a bit of an oxymoron. But sometimes life is like that. If you don't carve out time to relax, you won't. So you'll have no time and you'll just be constantly foot on the gas to the floor, and that is not sustainable. Now, obviously, this is assuming that there is a stressor or a time that you will get over, and that once that thing has stopped, you can take your foot off the gas, pick up anything that you had to put down, and just properly relax. If that doesn't come, it's a bigger problem. And I think if you've gotten this far into the video, then I'm going to guess that we are in safe company and I can get a little bit more personal with it. But I myself am asking myself some hard questions at the moment. So I think my own example, because my circumstances have changed over the last few months, I used to have this much time to work and I filled that time with work and it was doing really well. Only now my time is like here, but my workload is still here. Yeah, it doesn't work. So I need to reduce my work to match the time that I now have. That's the stressor that I have. And I don't know how it will work, but I think in 2025, I am going to have to let something else go. I don't know what it is, but I know it's going to be a big thing, but it's taken me this long to be able to say that out loud because I've been doing little tweaks. Little tweaks like moving the monthly reset videos to the channel membership. Little tweaks like wanting to take part in Vlogmas, but moving it over to this channel so that I wouldn't overwhelm myself with having to do all of the videos. Which reminds me, that's happening at the end of this week. There won't be a Coffee and Craft episode now until the very end of December because I'm going to be doing Vlogmas here on this channel. I might break my channel, I don't know. But it is kind of actually linked to having to drop something else in next year because the thing that I drop is going to have to be bigger. It's either going to be YouTube, Patreon, or my shop. Oh, there, I said it. You have no idea how hard that was to actually say out loud, but that is the truth. I don't like it. I don't like it because each and every single part of my business is something that I've wanted to do for a long time. And 2024 was the year that I finally got my business looking and feeling the way I wanted it. So yeah, it's just sod's bloody law that I'm in a position where I now have to change things. If you have a stressor that isn't just an event or a thing that will pass, if it's something that's ongoing, all of these little tips and tricks that I've talked about in this video will help short term, but longer term you need to do something different. What's that phrase? If you want different, you're going to have to do different. I know, it's quippy, it's trite, but it's also true. Anyway, there is no more coffee in my cup, so I'm going to love you and leave you. As I said, the next video that you see going up will be at the end of this week, and it will be day 1 of Vlogmas. I do hope you will follow me along for that. As I say, I might break my channel. That will be fun to see too. If you are still watching, thank you so much. It definitely was a waffly one, and I will hopefully see you for day 1 of Vlogmas next week at the end of this, in a few days' time. Ooh, right, ta-ra.